Well, I'm sure many people are aware that when Newfoundland joined Confederation back in 1949, the Mi'kmaq communities were not recognized under the Indian Act. And from that point in time, right up until what happened in 2011 when the Qalipu First Nation Band was organized, there's been a lot of debate, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of negotiations pertaining to the Aboriginal people here in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Well, here we are now in 2016. Application processes have taken place. They've been amended, they've been changed, deadlines have been moved forward, and now January 31st, 2017 is when things will close. Well, there's been some discussion around the whole process, where we are now, the thousands of applications that are still out there. Chief Brendan Mitchell is here with me at Brook Cafe tonight, so we can talk about where we are and how this is affecting the membership and those wanting to be part of the First Nation Band. Chief Mitchell, nice to see you.
Thank you, Wendy. Always great to be here.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much to you and your family.
Now, while it's Happy New Year, I guess for the Qalipu First Nation Band right now, this January is one that hasn't really started out with that, glorious outlook of the new year. You've already been seeing some, I guess, lashback and questioning on through this whole process and what's going to happen now at the end of the month. Do you want to reflect on that?
Thank you. I think it'll be a difficult new year. We are approaching January 31st, and that's the date in which letters will be sent out, about 101 to 103,000 of them, to our many members and applicants across Newfoundland, across the country, and elsewhere in the world where our members reside today, our applicants reside. So it's a bit of a tough situation. Already we saw just in Corner Brook last week a demonstration by a small number of people, but I think the demonstration was important to let people know, to let government know that people do have concerns about what's about to happen. And there's a lot of speculation, of course, as to what will happen. For me personally, I think we're facing the prospects of some people who live away from home, living outside of Aboriginal communities in Newfoundland, by the way, which there are 66 today. So, for example, St. John's, Newfoundland, Halifax, Toronto, Alberta, Fort McMurray, Manitoba, these are not Aboriginal communities. So our people live there, and they're being determined in terms of their membership by a point system that's applied to the supplemental agreement. So a lot of people are nervous, and the largest amount of concern we're hearing from people who potentially believe that they may lose their membership in Qalipu First Nation. And this is a very difficult thing for me as Chief of Qalipu. I tell people, we're here to support our membership, and we're here to support people fairly who should belong in this process. And, when these cards were provided to people, they were provided by the federal government of Canada. Mm-hmm. They weren't supplied by the FNI, or Federation of Newfoundland Indians, and they certainly weren't supplied by Qalipu First Nation. The people that will take these cards away will be the government of Canada. It will not be the Federation of Newfoundland Indians, and it will not be Qalipu First Nations. So this is a very difficult thing. I've had many conversations with Minister Carolyn Bennett, the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada. 3 occasions I've sat with her face to face. I begged the minister to leave our people alone. I insisted that these people who have our cards today in this country moved away from Newfoundland for good reasons. We continue to have the highest unemployment rate of any province in Canada. A lot of our people moved away years ago to find a way to make a living for their families. And today we see them, waiting on an announcement that might be very negative in terms of their ability to stay in this band. And that's a serious situation, and that's a big problem for me personally, for Qalipu First Nation, and for our council. So we're here to support our members. We're not here fighting against our membership. I've met 3 times face-to-face, as close as you and I today, with Assistant Deputy Minister Joelle Momini, who was the Assistant Deputy Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada. She actually owns this file on behalf of Canada as a principal in keeping it moving forward. I've had many meetings with other organizations, many conversations, and they're not always pleasant. I keep pushing for our people, and I'm really having a problem with people losing membership in Qalipu First Nation. I met with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples. I met with the Assembly of First Nations representatives. In fact, just recently, I had a regional chief of the Assembly of First Nations with me in a meeting in Ottawa with the federal government on the enrollment process. I've talked to our MPs. I've written letters to the minister. I've written a letter to the Prime Minister looking for a meeting about this important issue. So people out there think that Brendan Mitchell appears to be quiet, but I'm not quiet. I'm doing what I can do. And I don't have a problem, participating in any respectful and peaceful demonstration that anybody may have to bring forward their views. To date, people have been been very unkind to Qalipu First Nation and to the FNI and people like me and others. I'm telling people you need to bring your complaints to government. I get many requests for interviews, and I spoke to Fred Curran recently, only last week, and said, are you getting any requests for interviews? And they said nobody is contacting Canada for an interview on this file. I would like Canada to come out and tell people why this is happening. Be honest with our members. Be honest with our applicants. You know, don't wait till January 31st to do this.
Right.
I mean, they have a responsibility in this process also. But right now, it seems to be borne entirely on Qalipu First Nation and for me and our council.
So the question, Brendan, is about the validity, I guess, of those, 100,000 applications out there, because this has grown into such a large band, and it's much more than the federal government anticipated when this started, I imagine.
Thank you, Wendy. That's a good comment to make. I think when government got involved in this file initially and considered doing something to form Qalipu First Nation after 5 decades of people struggling, persevering, and asking government for recognition, I mean, we finally arrived at Qalipu First Nation. And, that was a pretty proud moment for all of us. At the time the band was formed, we had 22,877 members. But as you suggested, a lot of people came into this process after. That likely prompted government to look at a way to try to deal with this massive number of people, 103,000 people, to come into this process. And how do we deal with this, and how can we legitimately determine, because there was a question, and there is a question today regarding legitimacy of our people and our applicants. And this is where all this thing has come from. I would suggest that if all these applicants never came out, there probably would not have been a supplemental agreement, because we had a band form for a few years, from 2011 to 13, without a supplemental agreement. Mm-hmm. And people seem to be very okay with a band size at 23,877. However, a lot of people came out after that. And I'll tell to you and tell to our viewers today, Brendan Mitchell makes no apology to anybody for having formed Qalipu First Nation. I make no apologies for a band size of 22,877, which placed us as the largest individual Indian Act band in Canada. And I also make no apologies for the interest of all these 103,000 people who believe they're of Aboriginal background and should be part of this process.
So, Brandon, the fight right now is not within the members. It's not about the people that are currently there. It's about everybody coming together. It's the fight with Canada and the looking at the regulations. Is that what's happening here?
Well, there's lots of facets of what you refer to as a fight. I mean, we have a lot of infighting. Or I should
say concern.
Concern among we have a lot of infighting and concern among our own people. There are a lot of active people out there that are saying some pretty nasty things about Chief Brendan Mitchell and council and staff and some of our family members. And for me, that's pretty disappointing, and that's also very disrespectful. But these people out there, and typically they're engaged heavily in Facebook.
Yeah,
and,
social media.
Social media, and they don't care what they say. Some stuff that I see in here is damaging, it's insulting, harassing, intimidating, it's demeaning, yes, and some of it's slanderous. These people need to put some of their energy into where they need to be doing it with government.
Mm-hmm. And of course, all of this conversation amongst current members and people who are awaiting their application, that's not going to do anything to unify them as a group of people, right? This is just going to splinter them.
I think it has a splintering or divisive outcome. But people insist on doing it this way. Social media is a place where people can go say what they want, sometimes even hide away under alias names, misrepresent themselves and their points of views and so forth. And it's a shame that kind of thing goes on, but hey, that's Facebook.
We're down to our last minute here. There's a couple of weeks left now before these letters are going to come out, before this deadline approaches. What do you say to those people who are waiting to find out whether or not they are going to be accepted?
Wendy, for me and for our council, we're going to continue to try to bring some sensibility to this process. People are saying to me in the demonstration last week, Brendan Mitchell, you and council, walk away from the supplemental agreement. Tell Canada to take a hike. Wendy, I just want to clarify for our viewers and listeners again, we can walk away from the supplemental agreement. It doesn't change the supplemental agreement. It's a legal and binding document, fully supported by Bill C-25, passed in Parliament by the Conservative Party, and today still being supported by the Liberal Party in this country. So this is a tough situation. People say to me, walk away. We walk away, so that means coming in the summer, spring, summer, and fall, when we have an opportunity to try to intervene and help and work with Canada to try to bring some I don't know, some sensibility, for lack of a better way to say it, to what's happening to our people, we will not even be allowed to be at the table. So we can all say that we're here to support our people, and we are. We're fighting to try to keep our membership. I don't want to see anybody losing a membership card. These people were given a card 5 years ago in good faith by the Government of Canada. You know, here you are today, Wendy. Thank you. You're an Aboriginal person, First Nation status. Oh, I'm sorry, give it back to me. You're not an Indian anymore. You're not a status Indian anymore. I have a real big problem with that. And I've done that very exercise that I just did with you, with Carolyn Bennett, with Assistant Deputy Ministers, with members of Parliament and others, in an attempt to try to tell these people that what's happening here is very difficult, and Brendan Mitchell, as Chief of Qalipu First Nation, really don't like what's about to happen here. It's not what we should be doing as a country and as a nation. Prime Minister Trudeau has said in front of me in 2 sessions I've been in his presence that his primary responsibility as Prime Minister of Canada is to Indigenous people.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say to us about Qalipu First Nation and what I believe may happen in January.
Chief Mitchell, thank you so much. Lots of great information there, and we'll certainly keep our eyes and ears open for what's going to be happening at the end of the month.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated.
That's Chief Brendan Mitchell reflecting on what's happening now with the Qalipu First Nation Band. Lots to be aware of in the next few weeks. We'll be right back after this.